Sure. Again, as always, I appreciate you guys attending our media day. This is an exciting time of the year for us. I kind of call it Christmas in August, where we get to open up all the new toys that we've recruited and developed over the last 6-7 months here. As coaches, we look forward to the hands-on work we get to do with our players. We were able to do a few more things this summer based on NCAA rules, but to be able to spend, as I told the team yesterday, 24 hours on football. They don't have to worry about school right now. They don't have to worry about a lot of other things other than this is the one time of the year we get to just do football. And I know we're excited about that. As players, the energy is palpable. They've arrived yesterday, and you can just feel the excitement that our players have for this season. As I mentioned at the Big Ten Media Day, we've got really high expectations for ourselves entering this 22 season. Since the bowl game, I've seen our team really take some big steps in becoming the two important things that we've talked about since January, which is being connected and committed. And I think that's really important, going to be really important for us as we go through what we expect to be a really tough season with the type of schedule we have to play. The togetherness is evident. This all season, our players went through a really hard winter conditioning, which we call our Terp time program, as well as the summer program. When you start looking at our roster, and this is what really has me more excited than anything, is three things are really clear. One, we have talent. Two, we're building great depth. Finally, especially up front in the trenches with the O-line and the D-line, where we've been pretty thin here over the last few years. We have a ton of experience, even though we're still a young team, not a lot of seniors, but we have a ton of experience in terms of guys returning that have started. I think we have a total of about 314 games that guys have started that we have returning. 31 guys on our roster have at least started a game in college. Having continuity on our roster and with our coaching staff is another really key to this excitement that I know I have. The alignment that I see on our defensive side of the ball with Brian Williams at the front of the room. I've got a ton of respect, and I know Dan Enos will continue to do a great job developing our quarterbacks and calling the offense, and then with James Thomas and our special teams continuing to build on that phase of the game. Practice number one is later today. So for us, this starts it. We want to get the media day out of the way. We want to get the team picture and then get really right to developing the necessary calluses that we're going to have to get through a tough schedule. When you look forward and seeing some of our guys that were injured last year back at practice and healthy, to me, we lost quite a few of our playmakers through the course of last season right there in the middle when we hit that slide. And to be able to have guys like Ja'Shawn Jones back and Dante Demas back and Deonte Banks, a lot of really talented players that we missed last year. And so what we want to do now with camp is identify who the playmakers are and who steps up as leaders for our team. And so with that, I'll open it up to any questions you guys may have.
You guys could raise your hand. We'll get you a mic and then just state your name and affiliation. We'll start with Dave Preston on your right.
Mike, Dave Preston, WTOP Radio. Defensively, to make that next step, when you look at building a defense to compete in the 21st century of the Big Ten, what gives you confidence that this year the whole will be better than the sum of the parts and you guys will be able to make those strides?
Well, I think the biggest thing I talked about in the opening statement was the health of, we had some really talented players on defense missing. You think back to the Ohio State game where we started our maybe third and fourth team guy because we had Jacorian Bennett was out, Deonte Banks was out. Obviously, Tarheed played injured most of last season. And so to get those guys back healthy in addition to Corey Coley, who played in that game as a true freshman against the best receiving corps in the league, some would say. Those experiences will make Corey better, but having Deonte back and having Jacorian back healthy will help things. Bringing Ami back, Finau back for a COVID year, that 6th year. As a junior college player, he came in and that first year was his COVID year, so now you're going to have another weapon or talented player that has more experience of playing in the Big Ten. I really like the alignment with the defensive staff. Brian Williams did a tremendous job at the end of the year with the Rutgers game and the Virginia Tech game, putting together a great plan with the addition of Lance Thompson, Wes Neighbors, those guys who are very familiar with our defensive system I just feel really good that the experience on that side of the ball and what they've gone through. But I think most of all, it's going to be about stopping the run and being able to limit the big plays. And I feel really good about the staff. I feel really good about the talent on that side of the ball.
Any questions? We'll go to Emily. Third row.
Emily Giambavo at Washington Post.
Hey, Emily, good to see you.
Hello.
Yeah.
When you mentioned those high expectations of yourselves, I'm just curious, like when you're thinking about building on what you did last year, how important is competing with those top teams in the division, maybe knocking them off in terms of just building this program brand to where you want it to be?
You know what? Again, and I hate to sound cliche-ish, but it's not going to be really about those top opponents. You know, when I studied us and I went through every game again this summer, you know, coming off of 2 knee replacements, I had a lot of time to watch a lot of film. It's still Terps versus Terps. I mean, we're going to game plan for our opponents, but I think what we've got to do with the expectations we set for ourselves is play to the best of our ability. And if we do that, we're a pretty talented team, and you look at us the way it's been built. But talent doesn't get it done. Going out and executing does, and that's what these practices are for, and that's what our jobs as coaches is to get the players to understand their job to go out and execute. So I'm excited because of what we've gone through, but more, it's going to be more about what we do than it is those teams that I know people say we want to close the gap between the top teams, and we got a tough league. We understand that, but it's still going to be more about what we do than it is what they do. And I feel good that we're creating the type of culture and the discipline that'll allow us to do those things that we want to get accomplished.
Questions?
All right, thank you.
To your left.
I don't work this time, huh, Amy?
Alyssa Beer, Terps.com. Coach, just talk a little bit about the growth from the offensive line from last year until this year.
Yeah, listen, the big thing for me is this group has played a lot of football together. I mean, and we have a lot of interchangeable parts, which is what I love most. I mean, a guy like Spencer Anderson can play across the board from right tackle to left tackle to center to guard. DJ Glaze, who gave us some meaningful minutes last year and started some games, can play both inside, outside. Emilio Moran is another one of those guys that can play both inside, outside. Jahari Branch has played guard and center, so we've created a lot of versatility with that group, but being able to add the depth that we've been able to add behind those guys. We got fortunate that we were able to get through last year playing just 7 guys up front, and in a perfect world, you want to have 10 battle-tested guys. Now, the good thing about the group of 5 returning starters, Mason Lunsford becoming a leader for us, is that these guys have been through the tough times, and the O-line takes the longest to develop when you come in. And to me, they're in year 4 in our system. Jalen Duncan's gone from, you know, maybe getting his teeth kicked in as a redshirt freshman to now he's the guy that's highly thought of and wants to have a great year. So feel good that they will be able to take the experiences over the last few years, and I saw us get better with each year, and I think it's the most improved unit on our team.
In the back with the cameras, Rocco.
What's going on, Coach?
Hey, Rocco.
You've seen Talia grow over the years. Coming in, he set the school record for passing yards last season. What are your expectations and some goals you have for him in 2022?
You know what? The only goal I have for Leah is to continue to, as I say, emotionally mature, which I think he's done each and every year. There's no doubt about it. He is a talented quarterback. He can make all the throws. He adds an element with his legs. He has a tremendous understanding of what we do. But even more, I mean, his job really is to be a distributor of the ball. And by us having a lot of moving pieces, guys like Corey Dyches, who becomes a threat as a tight end, the receiving core that we've talked about, the young running back group, which I'm really excited to kind of see what those guys look like, you know, in terms of Roman Hemby and Ramon Brown and Antoine Littleton and Kobe McDonald coming back. You know, those are a lot of good, talented players, and Leah's job now is pretty easy. It's get those guys the ball in the advantageous spots and let those guys make plays. And so for me, I think the biggest next step for Leah, and he understands it, is to continue to emotionally mature to where, as a leader, he doesn't ride the wave of emotions that go within a game where you have the good and the bad. We want to kind of keep him at neutral.
Second row center, Ahmed.
Hey, Coach, I'm McAfee inside the black and gold. And you kind of just hinted at it, the running back room, obviously having Colby, Antoine, and Ramon Brown, and then obviously Roman Hemby as well. What are you kind of looking to see out of that young running back group, and how do you help to develop them to make sure that there's more balance on the offense this year?
Yeah, I think the big thing is that those guys playing without the football, if there's an Achilles heel to young running backs, is they're not used to having to protect because they usually free release in high school. They normally don't have to block some of the type of players they'll have to block in this league. So the thing I'm looking forward to seeing is how much they've grown and matured into playing without the football the way you got to play that position group. When you study these guys and watching them from high school till now, they're all big play threats. I mean, between Roman, Kobe, Antoine, and Ramon Brown, all four of those guys were heavily recruited guys that have shown the ability to be playmakers. What we want to see now is who gives us the best chance. I mean, I can see us using or utilizing all those guys. I like to use the weapons, and Dan likes to use the weapons the way they needed to be used to get them the ball. But I'm excited to kind of see how this group has learned our stuff over this offseason, with Roman and Antoine, who didn't play a lot until the bowl game. That was kind of a small taste of what they're capable of. I'm looking forward to seeing what they do here during the next 25, 30 days.
Second row center.
Hey, Coach. Noah Ferguson, Diamondback.
Noah.
Jacob Copeland obviously gives you more offensive depth now at the wide receiver position that's already pretty loaded. What do you think is his biggest offensive strength at the wide receiver position?
His physicality that he brings to the position. I mean, he is a big, strong guy that when you get him the ball, he's a tough tackle for defenders. Obviously, he has big play threat ability because he's a guy that has run after catch ability. The thing I'm looking most forward to is just how he plays and the things he's able to do to add to that room, because we already, like you said, had a talented room, but to be able to add another piece like him, they're going to have to kind of pick the poison as to who they want to double, and somebody will end up getting singled up, and that's where we've got to do a good job of finding that guy that has that advantageous matchup.
Coach, Bruce Posner from Terp Talk at terptalk.com.
Hey, Bruce.
How you doing, Coach? Great to see you again.
Yep.
Riley, your place kicker.
Mm-hmm.
How excited are you about that? Because that was somewhat of a sore spot last year, especially in early parts of games.
Yeah, it was an inconsistent spot for us the last couple of years, and Joe Petrino played a lot of football around here, and we were fortunate to have Joe and what he brought to the table. Being able to get a kicker like Chad, which I think when you look at him statistically coming out of last year, he's one of the top kickers in the country. And that was really important because once you cross the 35-yard line, you want to be able to at least know that we have a chance to get points on the board. When you look at us situationally in the red zone, I think we scored touchdowns on like 58% of our drives that we got inside the 20. And then the goal is to be 100% scoring, which means field goals and touchdowns. And so we weren't at the standard that we set for ourselves. And having a guy like Chad who has the ability to kick field goals and be really consistent, but even more so, help the special teams with his kickoffs, where he's able to kick the ball out of the end zone, and now we don't have to cover kicks as much as we had to the last few years. So hopefully we're able to use him as a weapon and really help our special teams take that big step that we need to take.
Second row.
Coach Ben Reitman, WMUC Sports.
Hey, Ben.
Chigo Okonkwo was a big part of your offense last year at the tight end position. What are you thinking about as the plans for the position for this upcoming season?
Yeah, as Tyler Mabry was my first year here, who's still playing in the league, as Irv Smith was at Alabama, the tight end position is one that we like to utilize. And I know Dan, as a coordinator, has traditionally been a huge guy in terms of utilizing the tight end position, because that's where you are able to take advantage of some matchups. And when you look at the job Corey Dyches did, stepping up, kind of being a complement to Chig, very similar player, hasn't put on the size that Chig was at when he finished, but I think he's on track to be that type of player for us. Young CJ Dupree, who played a ton of football for us as a true freshman, is able to line up in that C area, be physical, give us the edge that we need to as we try to run the ball better this year. So, and then Weston Wolf, who played a little bit in the bowl game, and we like his development, as well as LaRon Husbands finally being healthy. We feel we got some weapons in that room, but they have to be developed. we have to see how those guys have come along based on what they did this summer.
Hey, Mike. George Gerba, Washington Times.
George.
How's it going?
Good to see you.
You mentioned at Big Ten Media Days that Dante was on track to hopefully be ready by week 1. I wanted to ask if there was any kind of update on that, and if you could speak to how excited he is in preparing and getting back out onto the field.
Yeah, I think I said he's ahead of schedule, not necessarily on track, and that our thought is we will see him in the first game, and I think that's still where we are. Now, obviously, we've got to get through the next 25, 26 practices, but he's been at all of the off-season workouts. He continues to be one of the tremendous leaders that we have in our program. I know he's kind of been the heartbeat of our team and the emotional leader. So having him back has been just great for our program and great for our offense. So we're excited, talking to the trainers downstairs. And again, I very rarely get into the medical part of it, but to hear that he's ahead of schedule and that the expectation is that he'll play in the first game as long as we continue to do the things we need to get him to that first game and being smart with how we use him this summer in practices. I'm excited to have 7 back.
We have time for about 3 more. Go to Scott up front.
Scott Green, TerrapinSportsReport.com.
Scott, what's up?
How's it going, Coach?
Great.
You're coming off a first winning season, then obviously a first bowl win for the program since Friesian was here. When you talk about expectations, does a winning season, a bowl win, kind of become the baseline? And if so, does it become easier to sell the players on it, once they kind of experience that kind of success?
The baseline for us is each player playing to the best of their ability, us being the best version of the Maryland football team that we can possibly be, just coaches, staff, and players. And we don't get into, how many wins and what we need to do to win. We talk about that whole process of how you have to have the right kind of habits and behaviors to win, and we're going to continue to stay in that realm of how we develop this team. Our expectations are high because we've seen our team put in the necessary work this all season. We've seen the leadership that we've talked about needing to have. We've seen the culture in the locker room continue to shift to where the only thing that's important is how can I help this team? And as long as we got that mentality where guys don't really care about the individual accolades, but the team goals, which is to go out and play to the best of our ability for 4 quarters and not look up at the scoreboard. And if we played the way Terps are capable of playing, we'll have what we want at the end of the year. Going to a bowl game, what it does do is it kind of shows them, like, look, this is what happens when you have the right kind of habits and behaviors. And the thing I want to make sure that we all don't misconstrue is that we can build on what we did last year, because we really can't. We have to start over from scratch. Last year's team is gone, won't be here when we line up today in our first practice. It'll be all about this team creating an identity and maybe using from some of the experiences we gained from last year to help us take that next step this year.
Time for 2 more. Second.
Hey Coach, what's going on? Sam Oshie with Testudo Times.
Sam, what's up, buddy?
I'm doing well. I wanted to get your thoughts on USC and UCLA joining the Big Ten and just the direction of the conference in general and where it's headed in the landscape of the Big Ten and college football.
Yeah, I thought it was a great move, a bold move by Commissioner Warren. When you look around the landscape of the way the conferences, the realignment has gone, and the move that the SEC made with Oklahoma and Texas, I thought this was a great counter in terms of bringing 2 storied programs into the Big Ten. They fit the DNA of what the Big Ten is all about, the best in athletics and the best in academics, not necessarily in that order. They have tradition in terms of from an athletic prowess that they add value to a conference that already had a really strong brand. So kudos to the Big Ten staff that was able to get that done. And I know I'm excited to have those teams here, which now makes us geographically a coast-to-coast conference, which is not surprising based on what the Big Ten's been all about.
And with Dave on your right.
Mike, you addressed the continuity of your staff and how you've, as opposed to your first couple of years where you're plugging and putting in a lot of new guys, these are guys who've been here 2, 3, now 4 years. How important is that for the success of this program moving forward, to not just have the right guys, but to have guys who have been working together 24/7 for a couple of years?
Yeah, I think what you hit on best of all was having the right guys. And again, this is not a knock on the previous staffs, because each staff member that I've had since I've been here has helped get us to where we are today. So But the alignment is what I really feel is the critical part for, when you start putting together a staff. And again, we're going to lose staff members every year. We're going to lose players. We're at that point as a program that, once we get it to a championship level, then you're able to kind of take care of your staff the way you need to take care of them so that you don't lose them. But, we've got some really good young coaches. We've got guys like Dan Enos, who's been in our program. I've worked with Dan. He's been a head coach before and very deserving of being a head coach again. And so my job is, again, to continue to create the alignment necessary on the staff so that when we do have these changes, it doesn't affect the players. Because staff members come and go, but what we do on offense, defense, and special teams, those don't change when coaches leave. Now, you can add to it. We can make it better, but we're not wholesale changing the philosophically what we want to do on offense, defense, and special teams when we bring in new people.
All right, thank you, Coach.
Thank you very much.
We're not Coach Enos